like I said, they weren't able to give me any pain medications or any kind of drug at all. So I had to suffer that pain. I would cough, it hurts. When I would attempt to breathe, it hurts. When I lay down, it hurts. Anything that I did, it just hurt. And there was nothing that I could do about it.
Joan does that extra time, so I have to hear the white noise longer. Thank you. David. Okay. So, with regards to the objection for the question that's being proposed currently, the court will overrule it. The court does this as a question-by-question basis. This may answer the question, or the court can re-ask the question that you were saying you were going to ask.
All right, Dr. Nunham, I apologize for that brief break. I know that.
Did he actually get a copy of what you wanted to try to do?
Oh, do you have a copy of that?
I do.
Okay.
Got it.
And Dr. Nunham, have you ever heard of the American Chemical Society?
Yes, I have. Okay.
And this press release that I put in front of you, are you familiar with either the press release or the article that they are discussing? Which I have a copy if you want to see.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Have you ever seen any articles in the scientific literature linking the use of titanium to the manufacture of hydrazine compounds from room air at room temperature?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Have you ever seen anywhere in the literature prior to today any indication that titanium can be used that way to make hydrazine?
Not that I recall.
Do you have any opinion as to whether or not the titanium tubes used by Real Water played a role in the manufacture of the hydrazine in a chemical fashion rather than a physical fashion?
I do not at this time.
And is that just you don't have an opinion one way or the other?
I did not look into it, so I do not have an opinion.
Have you ever seen the titanium tubes that were used at Real Water?
Only, well, today in court.
Okay, that's good. Have you had the opportunity to look inside of them?
Not yet.
All right. If you were retained, with what you know today, if you were retained by a company that was going to start manufacturing alkalinized water, would your advice to them be not to do an electrolysis method using titanium tubes?
Objection, Your Honor, lacks foundation, calls for speculation.
Sustained on both grounds.
Okay. As you sit here today, Dr. Nugent, is it your belief that the electrolysis method used by Real Water was the culprit in the formation of hydrazine from room air?
That is my best professional opinion at this point.
Okay. And based on your opinion, would it be your advice not to manufacture water using that method?
You're asking me to speculate on advice to somebody who's not asking me that advice. So I do not have a way of answering your question.
Okay. So what you're saying is you'd be open to advising them to do that?
I'm not saying anything. I am simply saying, you're speculating on what I might do. You're asking me to speculate on what I might do, and I'm not going to speculate.
Doctor, I'm not going to ask you to speculate here. There shouldn't be any guessing involved. Based on everything you know now, you should have some sense of what advice you would give based on the very simple hypothetical before you.
Objection, Your Honor, lacks foundation, calls for speculation outside the scope.
And I'm going to need you all to approach briefly, please. Thank you so much. I'll make the white noise off. We just need to make sure we don't have multiple people talking at once. Okay?
Okay.
Appreciate it. Just to give a nice clear record. Thanks so much. So council understands you're withdrawing the questions to the court need not rule.
The question has been dragged out in Schaffer.
Okay.
And Dr. Najim, are you ever retained to give advice to companies about avoiding production of hydrazine?
Not so far.
Okay. All right, that's all I have here.
Appreciate it. Okay. This juncture, further cross-examination. Also, for ETT side, let's let the person go.
Good afternoon, Doctor. I'm Valerie Rojas. I represent ETT. It's nice to meet you.
Good afternoon.
I just have a few questions for you. In terms of the properties of hydrazine, is it within your expertise to tell the jury what concentration you would detect an odor of hydrazine in water?
I do not know that concentration.
And what about the taste? Do you have any understanding as to the taste threshold for hydrazine in water?
I do not have that information.
And I know you said earlier that hydrazine, you did not know when hydrazine would become visible in water. In other words, at what concentration, is that right?
I know that it would become visible as it goes up in concentration above a certain point. I don't know what that point is.
Does hydrazine create mold?
Not that I'm aware of.
Does hydrazine create any type of fuzzy look in the water? Like resemble mold?
You're taking me into the realm of microbiology, and I'm not here to talk about microbiology. I
Okay,
do not know the answer to that question.
okay, thank you, Doc. But hydrazine does degrade, correct?
It is an unstable chemical that degrades over time. Correct.
Sorry, were you finished?
I am.
Does heat impact the rate of degradation of hydrazine?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so if there were retail bottles of real water at the real water bottle plant in the middle of summer here in Las Vegas, it's pretty hot, right? So those retail bottles are sitting at the real water plant, eventually then put on a truck, sent to a distribution center like Nevada Beverage Company. Sits there for some period of time, and then gets back on a truck and is distributed to stores throughout Clark County, including Terrible Herbst. Could you tell us how much the hydrazine would have degraded from the time it left real water until the time it gets to Terrible Herbst store?
Your Honor, objection, incomplete hypothetical, lacks foundation, calls for speculation.
Overruled on all three grounds. Why this witness's prior testimony and his destination. Witness may answer.
Like I testified initially, I cannot predict how much degradation took place from production to consumption. And I don't know how much degradation would have happened before a sample was taken and measured. So I do not have the ability to predict how much it would degrade over time.
Are you able to at least tell us whether it degrades at a consistent rate over time, or whether it could fluctuate, or do we even know that?
I do not know the rate of degradation of hydrazine without a lot more information.
Okay. So if a store clerk or a customer of Terrible Herbst were to pick up a bottle of real water, would they be able to see the hydrazine in that bottle?
I don't know, because I don't know the concentration of hydrazine in that water.
If a store clerk or a customer were to consume a bottle of real water off the shelf of Terrible Herbst, would you expect that they would be able to taste the hydrazine?
If the concentration of hydrogen is high enough, yes.
But we don't know at what rate or what level of concentration, right?
I do not know what the threshold level is.
Earlier you talked about some FDA results, do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And if I can ask Mark to put up exhibit number, Zamora, put up number 5. I believe this was one of the test results for one of the reports we were looking at. If you could highlight the date on that, Mr. Zamora, up at the top. At the top, there should be a collection date at the top of the document. Oh, actually, let's look at this report dated October 20th, 2021. You see that, Doctor?
Yes, I do.
I believe earlier in your testimony, there was a discussion about the collection date. Do you recall that being 5 or 6 months before this date?
Yes.
Do you have an understanding as to why it took that many months in order to get these test results showing hydrazine back after the collection?
No, I do not.
You reviewed a number of documents in preparation for your opinions here today, correct?
Correct.
And I noticed on your report, there was an exhibit called Documents Received, Considered, and/or Relied Upon in the Preparation of this report. Do you recall creating that list?
Yes, I do.
And there's just over 100 documents on that list, right?
Correct.
You reviewed a number of documents and lab results and investigation reports, right?
I received a lot of documents, and I was trying to be comprehensive to make sure that I may have looked at something and I did not want to omit it, so it's in that list.
And do you recall reviewing any test results of the water from real water itself?
I do recall some analytical reports from real water, yes.
Do you recall any reports from the Southern Nevada Health District concerning real water that predated 2020?
I do not recall.
Do you recall reviewing the depositions of Mr. Jones, Mr. Marlowe, and Mr. Aiken?
Yes, I do.
And you read all of the FDA and Southern Nevada Health District reports concerning their investigation of real water, correct?
To the best of my ability, yes.
In any of these over 100 documents you reviewed, did you see any evidence that anybody, any company or any person, found any evidence of hydrazine in real water before October 20 of 2021?
Not that I recall.
Thank you, Doctor. That's all I have.
Redirect counsel.
Your Honor, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, since there's not any redirect and there'll be no recross, the court's just double checking. I do not see any juror questions. Then is this witness excused for all purposes or subject to recall, and subject to recall in what part of the case, please?
Excuse for all purposes, Your Honor.
Okay. Real water, concur?
Yes, Your Honor.
ETT, do you concur?
ETT concurs, Your Honor.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. This witness excused. Thank you for your time. Just please watch your step on your way down. Appreciate it. And to the extent you're given a sheet of paper, Marcia, would you mind taking that sheet of paper? Hand it back to counsel who gave it to him. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Okay, this juncture, counsel for plaintiff, would you like to recall? Oh, sorry, not recall. I didn't say call you next witness. My apologies.
We call Jazmin Schaffer.
Okay, thank you so very much. Ms. Schaefer, come to stand. Marshall, we'll take it up to you. And Madam Clerk will swear you in.
Not the mic facing her. No.
We just need the mic turned around a little bit so it's a little closer facing. There you go, appreciate it. Thanks.
Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pain of the penalty of perjury.
I do.
You may have a seat, and please state and spell your name for the record.
Jazmin Schaffer, JAZMINSCHAFFER.
Hi, Catherine. Hi. I know you're a little nervous today, but I'm just gonna ask you a couple questions to help you tell your story to the jury, okay?
Okay.
All right, and is this your first time testifying in court today?
This is.
Okay. Well, let's start off by, let's go ahead and introduce yourself to the jury a little bit. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Hi.
I'm Jazmin Schaffer. I will be 33 years old on Monday. I am originally from California, born and raised, born in Los Angeles, but raised in San Bernardino, basically all my life.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I do, I'm the middle child. I have an older brother and sister and a younger brother and sister.
And you said you were from San Bernardino. How did you arrive in Las Vegas?
Just after feeling like I hit a ceiling, like I reached my growth potential in San Bernardino, I just felt like I needed a change in scenery and just for personal reasons. And at the time, my boyfriend I was dating, he's a Las Vegas Nevadian. And that was one of the reasons why it helped me move out in Vegas.
All right. And so when you got to Las Vegas, what did you do? What was your first job here?
I initially worked at FedEx Ground just to kind of get my feet planted out here and kind of get situated.
What did you do after that?
After being at FedEx for maybe like a month and a half for like seasonal purposes, I had got a job at Mandalay Bay as a housekeeper.
And then now what do you do?
I am a flight attendant for Southwest Airlines.
So your home base is here in Las Vegas?
It is.
And who do you live with here?
I live with my boyfriend,
And his name is?
Dante.
All right. And so it seems like you're always up in the air and, you know, working, but what are some of the things you like to do when you're here on the ground with us?
Sleep. Our schedules vary. Usually our trips are 3 days. And that can take a toll on your body, flying East Coast, West Coast, the time difference. So it takes a while for your body to get adjusted. So when I get home, I want to sleep.
And switching to why we're here today a little bit, what got you interested in rail water?
I've been in Las Vegas for about 6 years now, so pretty new to the scene. And say previously, my boyfriend is from Nevada, so he was more familiar with the brand of real water. But before doing any hard research, I thought alkaline water was healthy for you, had good benefits for you. So he knew of the brand, and he decided to get the home delivery bottles of real water.
So you have your water delivered to your home?
Yes.
Let's see. How much would you typically order?
We would typically order about 2 or 3 of the 5-gallon jugs every 2 weeks.
And on a regular daily basis, about how much rail water did you consume?
I personally consume maybe about 1 gallon a day, but we use the water for everything, cooking purposes, making tea or coffee.
Okay, so let's travel back in time a little bit to October of 2020. During that time period, is that when you were drinking rail water?
Yes, it was.
And at what point did you not start, at what point, did you not start feeling well?
I noticed a change maybe mid-October of 2020. I felt kind of off, maybe like as if you would feel like a cold coming up. So that's when I first started to realize I wasn't feeling well.
Okay, and what happened next after that?
As the days or weeks kind of progressed, my symptoms kept changing. I would feel pain in my abdomen. It would radiate from the front to the back. Very, very nauseous. I would feel like mind fog. Like I felt like I really wasn't there. I would feel just tired. out of nowhere, to the point where I found myself sleeping 12 hours plus a day.
And you mentioned, I think, nausea. Was there a point when you started vomiting as well?
Yes, so maybe 2 weeks after I felt I wasn't feeling well, I started vomiting, and I would vomit maybe once a day to where it came to be multiple times a day. I would see blood in my vomit, and it would just keep occurring every day.
And did you seek medical care before you ended up going to the hospital?
I did. I went to urgent cares. I told them my symptoms, that just tired, had pain in my stomach or my abdomen, and just continuously vomiting. And the only thing they told me was, "Oh, you're dehydrated, so just drink water and stay hydrated."
So what prompted you to finally go to the hospital?
Well, at this point, it was 3 or 4 weeks that I've been having these severe symptoms. Just falling asleep wherever I could, out of nowhere. And one day I found myself, I don't recall where I was driving, but it had to be important because I was in pain. I was driving, and as I was driving, I felt myself lose function of my hands. I started shaking uncontrollably, sorry, and I couldn't grip the steering wheel. So I had to pull over wherever I was to kind of collect myself, and every time I would try to grab that steering wheel, my hands wouldn't allow me to grab it. So, sorry.
Your arm behind the throat.
There's one right behind.
Oh.
There's tissues right behind you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, are you okay?
It's, so I pulled over and I called my boyfriend and I told him, I was like, I'm not doing good at all. So I sat for about maybe 10 or 15 minutes until I could basically force myself to drive back home. And when I got home, he immediately drove me to the hospital.
And so what hospital did Dante take you to?
He took me to Spring Valley Hospital.
Okay. Do you remember the date that you were taken to the hospital?
I believe it was November 13th.
Okay. And so you're up at the hospital on the 13th. What happened at the emergency department?
He took me straight into the ER. They got me checked in. They took me back to take blood samples, urine samples, and after that, they put me in a wheelchair, got me hooked up to some IVs, and about maybe 2 hours later, they admitted me.
Okay, so while you're in the hospital that day, what were you still feeling?
Still just uncontrollable shaking of the body, mostly my hands and my legs. Still feeling the pain in my sides and just being super tired.
And I'm gonna bring up some of your medical records. This has been a stipulated exhibit. It's exhibit 631.
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection. Appreciate it, thank you.
All right, Shane, if we can bring up 631, page 18, please. So very far away from me, I apologize. I believe at the very tippy
It's on
top.
the monitor as well.
Perfect.
Yours.
On the very tippy top up there, I believe it says service date and time. Do you see that where it says the 13th there?
Yes,
Is that your recollection of when you were hospitalized?
yes it was.
All right, and it says there as well that you were 329 at the incident. If I know this was a couple of years ago, you just said you were.
I believe so, yes.
All right, perfect. And going, Shane, to page 7. Exhibit 631, page 7, sorry. All right, and if we look at the top there, I believe there's a section that says chief complaint. All right, is it your understanding that your liver enzymes were elevated when you were hospitalized?
Yes, after I was admitted and they took the test and got some results, the main physician came into the room and told me that I had liver failure and that I had elevated liver enzymes, and they're about 5 times as the amount there should be.
Do you, I know Mr. Kemp mentioned them earlier in this round, but do you remember what your liver enzymes were?
I don't know the exact numbers.
Well, it's okay, I have a cheat sheet here. So Shane, can we go to page 40, please?
40.
40, please, yes, correct. I'm sorry, I'm gonna look behind me at this picture because I cannot quite read that one over there. It looks here that your AST levels were 3,637 and your ALT levels were 486. Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
All right, and that was on the 13th. If we look to the 14th, which is a little bit lower on that page there, Shane, your AST levels were, so this is the very next day, I believe, were 2,685, and then your ALT levels were 1,306. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, I believe you mentioned a little bit, but were you made aware of the need for a potential liver transplant?
As my statement, yes. Before I was advised of that, I was supposed to be released home. And the next day, the physician came back in the room and told me I would not be going home because my levels were very high. And she said if they don't go down, then the next potential thing that will probably happen is a liver failure. a liver replacement. But before that, they advised me to do a liver biopsy.
And would you tell the jury what was going through your mind before the liver biopsy began?
Just knowing that your liver is a main part of you being alive and functioning, it was very scary because for one, I don't know what's going on. No explanation was told to me. So just not knowing if you're gonna get better or if you might die. So your mind just started to wander and it was very scary.
And go ahead and tell me a little bit about the biopsy. What was that procedure like?
They took me into the surgical room where I got the biopsy, and I am awake for this whole procedure. So they moved me to the table, the operating table, and they positioned me to lay on my left side to where my right side was exposed. And they took this big surgical instrument to where they had to insert it in my side to get to my liver. And when they inserted it into my side, I felt everything they did. So when they had to pop the instrument into my side, I instantly couldn't breathe. I felt when they put the second instrument to take a sample of my liver, and I felt it when they took it out. And when they took the instrument out, I immediately couldn't breathe. I could not catch my breath. And I immediately started sweating profusely as if I jumped into a pool and I couldn't have no control over it. And I immediately told them that I was in pain. But they told me they couldn't do anything because it would potentially harm my liver even more. So I had to suffer probably 2 more hours of that pain until they can do anything for me.
So they wouldn't give you, my understanding is they wouldn't give you pain medication because of the state of your liver?
Yes.
Shane, can I get page 52 and 52 of Exhibit 631, please? And here's the final report of the liver biopsy. At the top there, it says that the date was the 17th. Was this a couple days after you were initially hospitalized?
Yes, it was.
And do you see where it says reason for the exam?
Yes.
Did was it your understanding that the liver biopsy had to happen because you had acute liver failure?
Yes.
And Shane, if we can switch back to page 4, please. It's another one saying something similar. The results of the biopsies here says at the, I think it's towards the bottom, Shane, in that very teeny small over there. And it says you have cholestasis, scattered histocytes, and portal tract showing eosinophils. Was that your understanding of the medical record and your biopsy?
They actually didn't go over what they found.
That's what it says there, right?
Yes.
And, thanks Shane. And while you're in the hospital and after you're recovering on your biopsy, I know this was the time of COVID, correct?
Yes, it was.
And were you allowed any visitors while you were sitting there?
My boyfriend Dante was able to visit me one time, but very briefly. But after that, I was allowed no visitors.
How was that?
Scary because you're there by yourself. You really don't have anyone to talk to or to try to comfort you. And lonely.
And is the pain of the liver biopsy something that went away just after the biopsy occurred?
No, it did not. After being discharged from the hospital and after having the liver biopsy, I suffered that pain for about a month afterwards. And like I said, they weren't able to give me any pain medications or any kind of drug at all, so I had to suffer that pain. I would cough, it hurts. When I would attempt to breathe, it hurts. When I lay down, it hurts. Anything that I did, it just hurt. And there was nothing that I could do about it.
So, taking you back to the hospital, was there a point when your liver enzymes started to decrease?
After a certain point, I was instructed to see a specialist after I was discharged. And I would say maybe that was a month after I discharged, I seen a specialist. And when I did see them, they did inform me that my liver enzymes were still high.
And ultimately, how long were you in the hospital for?
If I can remember, about 6 days.
And it sounds like you mentioned it, but after the hospital, you still continued some treatment?
I did my first initial seeing the gastro. They informed me that my liver levels were still high, so they told me to come back. And I don't know the time period of when I did go back, but when I did, they did tell me that they decreased.
And I don't want to take too much longer, but how has this affected you? How has this experience affected you?
In many ways, just looking at the scar on my side is a constant reminder every day that this happened. I get scared when I get sick because I don't know if that will affect my liver. I have stayed away from taking any kind of medications where I get severe migraines, and I kind of have to stick them out because I'm afraid if I take anything, it will do damage to my liver. And it's just the living with the unknown. I don't know if I might get sick again, so I have to kind of tiptoe around everything I do in my life.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Jazmin. I'm done for now.
Shit. That means going to cross-examination. Councilman Rojas would like to go to cross-examination.
Yes, I would. Thank you. Ms. Schaffer, my name is Joel Odou. We've met before. How are you doing right now?
I'm doing okay.
I promise you I will not have you up here very long. I just have some questions for you. Really, how are you doing?
At this point, I'm doing okay.
Okay. I'm very sorry that my client's product, Real Water, made you sick. And you've heard that we acknowledge not only that it made you sick, but it caused you this injury and it caused your medical bills. And I'm very sorry for that. Do you know approximately how much your medical bills are?
don't know the exact number, but maybe a little under 100,000.
If I told you a number, it was $90,000, $36.50. Does that sound about right to you?
If that's what was stated on the medical bills, then that's,
And I have the advantage, I have a fact sheet that has all of the information you provided, and I'd be happy to show it to you if you'd like to see it. I'm going to approach, this is exhibit 623, page 6. I'm just going to show it to her and walk right back. Page 6, so we'll have it all in. And you can look at the whole thing if you like.
okay.
There's no hurry.
It does state the amount.
Yeah, there's no hurry, and, we don't want to rush you through this, but I understand you'd like to be done, and that's not a problem at all. Does it look like it's about $90,000 total?
That's what it says, yes.
Okay. Obviously, rural water is responsible for that, that's my point. Let me talk to you a little bit about the time frame when you got sick, and I'll just kind of quickly go through that. So at the time when you got sick, it was late 2020. That was pretty much, for a lot of us, the height of COVID. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And at that time, you were working at Mandalay Bay, but they had sent everybody home because of COVID. Is that right?
Yes.
And so it looks to me, and I looked at your medical records and I had the advantage of looking at a calendar, but it looks like you got really sick and you went to a hospital on a Friday night. Does that sound about right to you? November 13th?
I don't know what day of the week it was, but I do recall it was November 13th.
Okay, that's fair. And it looks like you were in the hospital for about 5 to 6 days. That's what you said, is that right?
Yes.
And then you got out of the hospital
Yes.
and you started to get better, you started to feel better.
No, not initially.
Right, that first month, you still had the problem from where they did the biopsy, right?
Yes.
Very sorry about that. And then as time went on, though, you started to feel better, like in the year after?
As far as the abdominal pain, did feel better, but I didn't, excuse me, I did notice some of the symptoms that I was feeling initially as far as like the tiredness. I would notice it would come about every now and then. I would just get really, really tired out of nowhere, and it was just a feeling that I honestly couldn't control, whether I wanted to stay up or not, or if I got the proper amount of sleep. I would just feel extremely tired.
And I appreciate that. And so after you got out of the hospital, you're still feeling tired, you went and saw the gastro, he took your levels, he said they're still elevated, so far so good, is that right?
Yes.
And he had you come back and your levels were improving,
To my knowledge, yes.
and you got better.
Eventually, yes.
Tell me a little bit about Southwest. It seems to me, I want to kind of talk about something that maybe is a little bit easier for you. It seems to me that people that work at Southwest really like their jobs. Is that just, as a
I can't speak for
passenger,
everybody, but I would hope so.
I mean, it just seems like, I have friends who work for Southwest, they talk about it's a fun place to work.
If you make it fun, it is a fun place.
When did you start at Southwest?
I started Southwest April 9th, to be exact, of 2022.
April 9th, 2020. And one of my friends, he's a ex-Air Force. He's a manly man. He doesn't like hugging. He talks about, there are a lot of people at Southwest that hugs. It makes him nervous. I don't know if you feel the same thing.
It doesn't make me feel nervous, but we are very friendly.
He's a very serious ex-Thunderbird pilot, very military, but he's like, I don't know why everybody hugs. You don't have a problem with that.
To some extent, it depends.
So, anyways, my point is, you're now working for Southwest. You're able to get on with your life after this horrible event.
To be honest, I have no choice to. You could find a million reasons to be sad, to kind of harp over the past. But if you find those little things in life that actually make it enjoyable and to be just thankful, then I would rather do that.
Good for you. Thank you very much, Ms. Schaffer. It's very nice to see you again.
Council, can you all approach her real brief moment, please? Thank you so much for your time, it's white noise. Appreciate it. Okay. So you're wanting to complete your cross-examination, correct?
I have nothing further. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Appreciate it, thank you. ETT, cross-examination?
We have any questions, so it's just something on
I appreciate it. Council for plaintiff, do you have any redirect?
Just one question, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Or it might be two.
That's called a lawyer's one question.
I was gonna say,
Go ahead, please.
thanks. All right, definitely, no, we're almost finished with this. You had your deposition taken in this case, correct?
Yes.
All right, and I know Mr. Odou mentioned meeting you there. At the time of your deposition, did Real Water take responsibility for your illness?
I do not recall.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That means Real Water, since it was a redirect question, do you have any recross?
Ms. Schaffer, thank you very much. I don't have anything further.
Okay. ETT, do you have any questions?
Nothing for you.
Appreciate it, thanks so much. Okay, so this witness excused for all purposes or subject to recall? And if recall, what part of the case, please? Excuse for all purposes. Okay. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you so very much for your time. Just please watch your step on your way down. Okay, thank you so very much. And the marshal will come get the papers that were on the witness stand. Don't worry about those. He'll grab those and he'll give them back to the person who gave them to you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, at this juncture, counsel would like to call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, we call Dr. Kosnett by video, which I understand to be approximately 42 minutes long.
Okay. That should, or then we'll take our afternoon break after, okay?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, let me just explain. I mentioned in the introductory remarks that some individuals will be coming in person. Now, he's a video based on deposition, correct?
No, Your Honor, can we approach?
Oh, of course you can. Come on. Record my turning some white noise. We're trying to get on white noise. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I was explaining, if you may remember in the introductory remarks, I know I said a lot of different things, but I'll circle back and tell you this one. As we said, some of the witnesses were pre-recorded, okay? So they're just gonna show up on the screen. So that's different than some people may be appearing remotely. This is just a pre-recording, and it's an excerpted pre-recording so that you all don't have to hear the entirety of the pre-recording, okay? And so what they're basically gonna do is they're gonna play it, you're gonna be able to see it on the big screens, okay? And generally, you also have the words underneath it, so you can read it as well as hear it, okay? So we're just gonna make sure, it might take a minute just to make sure we get to the right volume and the right aspect, but at this juncture, counsel for plaintiff, would you like to state who the witness is gonna be by video pre-recording?
Yes, Your Honor, this witness is Dr. Michael Kosnett, our expert medical toxicologist.
Under Boulder versus State, this witness is gonna be able to express his opinions within the scope. Okay, so who is taking charge of, technically they get called, means they don't physically go to stand, basically the video pops on, and so I'm sure that's gonna magically happen in the next moment or so.
I'm ready when you are, Your Honor.
We're ready, go ahead, please, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Good afternoon. I don't anticipate your testimony will take long today for the medical jurors. Can you tell the jury a little bit about your education and current employment? I'm a medical toxicologist. I'm a physician who specializes in the field of medicine, the subspecialty that deals with how chemicals and toxic substances affect health. I've been doing that for 32 years. I went to college at Yale University. I had a Bachelor's of Science in Molecular Biophysics and Biochemistry. From there, I went to medical school at the Universities of California, San Francisco, graduated with my MD degree. Then I went on and I specialized in internal medicine. From there, I went on and got a second residency in occupational and environmental medicine, particularly focusing on how chemicals in the environment affect health. And then I went on and did a third certification function as a medical toxicologist at the University of California, San Francisco. And after all that, I was board certified in internal medicine, occupational medicine, and medical toxicology. And my wife said she would kill me if I got it. So I did. So we're going to be quick. What were you asked to do in this case? I was asked in this case to look at what could be the cause of, as a toxicologist, what could be the cause of what happened, people sick from drinking real water. There were studies, I was aware of the fact that the CDC and the FDA and the Southern Nevada Health District had done some epidemiological investigations, and they came to the conclusion in the spring of 2021 that there was something in the water, and they, prevented the water from being sold. But CDC never came out, FDA never came out and said, well, what was the specific agent in the water? They didn't think it was infectious. So counsel came to me, and they said, can you look at this and look at all the testing and everything that was done? And as a toxicologist, can you find anything that might have caused it? And so I proceeded to look at the evidence or the available information. And first thing I did is I wanted to find out, well, what medically has been examined, particularly of the type of liver disease that these people had. Because many of the people, as you know, actually had to be considered even for a liver transplant. And one of the studies I saw, and I'm going to launch it here, is this study was actually published in the American Journal of Gastroenterology, and it was a report on 4 of the people who underwent liver biopsies after being exposed to real water. It's called acute liver failure due to manufactured alkaline water, a case series of real water-induced liver injury. And what you see, and what I read about this, is that there was a variety of different types of liver damage that occurred in these patients. They included inflammation, they included some cellular injuries, bile stoppage, which we call cholestasis, inflammation of the bile ducts, and even in some cases, scarring of the liver, which is a form of cirrhosis, is a form of scarring of the liver. So I said, if something chemically in this water causes it, it has to be something that really causes liver damage. So the next thing I did is I looked at the FDA test reports. And they had a lot of testing, and I went through it all page by page. And one of the things, and I'm sorry to cut you off, for the record, the reference article, acute liver failure due to manufactured alkaline water, a case series of real water, that is Exhibit A. And that's been pre-admitted already. I'm sorry, continue. What was the next thing I did? So the next thing I did is said, well, look at the testing that the FDA did, and do I see anything in there that raised an eyebrow to me that this could cause liver damage? And sure enough, buried in the listings of all the things, I saw reference to hydrazine being present. And it was present at a very high quantity. This is in the concentrate. It was used to make the water. And this is over a part per 1,000. Sometimes just by reference to toxic substances in water, we're concerned about parts per million. Okay? In arsenic, the standard is 10 parts per billion. And this is a chemical that's toxic, and it's present in the parts per 1,000 range in this concentrate. So it wasn't just this one sample. In fact, it turned out that they tested 3 different samples of the concentrate, and hydrazine was present in all 3. Okay? And close to the same amounts.
And Dr. Kosnett, you're referring to the testing done by the FDA laboratories in Cincinnati. Is that right?
Yes.
And the 2 testing reports that you're referring to are pre-admitted exhibits 6 and exhibits 5.
So I knew that hydrazine, as a toxicologist, I knew that hydrazine was toxic. And I
told counsel, I said, I think this is something that we really have to look into as the cause. And so what I decided is I was going to do a thorough investigation about what was known about the way hydrazine affects the liver, and also at what doses it affects the liver.
Dr. Kaufman, in your review of the FDA testing, did you review any testing that the FDA did on the real water to concentrate that did not have hydrazine in it?
No. Every test that they did on the concentrate showed hydrazine.
Thank you. So you referenced that you went about to investigate what is known about how hydrazine affects the liver. How did you investigate that?
Well, I reviewed a lot of information about hydrazine. In fact, let me show you a picture of the chemical structure of hydrazine. And this is a very simple molecule. It's 2 nitrogens and 4 hydrogens. It's inorganic. But this is a very reactive molecule. So when it gets into biological systems, it reacts with it, it can cause damage. Okay? So this, and then I said, okay, well, let's look at the literature that shows how does it damage the liver. And I looked for studies, and it's interesting, this has been known, it turns out, for a long time. This is one of the articles I found. This was published in 1908. It's called The Pathological Anatomy of Hydrazine Poisoning. And it turns out, in 1908, they gave animals a single dose, and a bunch of different types of animals, a single dose of hydrazine, and all the animals had liver damage. And they said, that's pretty remarkable. Now, that was a single high dose. So I wanted to say, well, what about situations where people or animals got lower doses, but over a longer period of time?
So, Dr. Kosnett, as we're going through these scientific articles that you researched and looked at, before we get there, can you just tell the jury what is hydrazine?
Okay. Hydrazine, like I said, is an inorganic chemical, and it's soluble in water. It dissolves very well in water. It has, and when it's just looking at hydrazine, it has a little bit of an oily consistency to it. But when it's dissolved in water, it's clear and it just dissolves very well in water, and the water looks free. By looking at it, it looks like clear water.
What is it used for?
It's used for predominantly as a rocket fuel. Okay. It can be explosive and produce a lot of force when it's, and that's why they use it in rockets. They also use it as auxiliary power or emergency power in F-16s, or in case the regular power would fall, that would be a backup power. So it turns out that many of the studies on the toxicity of hydrazine were actually done at the request of the U.S. military, at the request of the Department of Defense. And they did government reports on it. And it wasn't just in our country, it was also in other countries. And so I reviewed that data as well.
And after you started looking into the scientific studies and data on the rocket fuel hydrazine, what else did you find?
Well, the thing that I wanted you to be aware of is a lot of these studies, and I'm going to show you when I mention the studies, and has to do with what we call dose. Okay? And dose is the amount of a chemical or drug that's taken or absorbed into the body. And we usually express it in terms of the amount the person takes in divided by their body weight. Okay? So for example, if you have 150 milligrams of a chemical like hydrazine, it could be any chemical, and we give it to someone, we want to know, well, how much does that person weigh? So that's often measured in kilograms of body weight. A kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So 100 kilograms, for an example in the top line there, 150 milligrams of the chemical in a 100 kilogram adult, that dose is 1.5 milligrams per kilogram per day. Right? If you gave that same amount, 150 milligrams of the chemical, to a child, who only weigh 10 kilograms or 22 pounds, who has a higher dose? Well, the child has 15 milligrams per kilogram. So we're going to talk, I want you to bear in mind that I'm going to mention the terms milligrams per kilogram per day. That's how you talk about dose in toxicology.
All right, Kosnett, can I ask you on this slide? So, 100 kilograms, I'm used to the pounds. Pounds I understand. 100 kilograms is that about
220 pounds.
So about it's all a little bit harder.
Yes.
What about 10 kilograms?
22 pounds.
So
The child.
So maybe 2 years. When we talk about dose, if we're giving the same amount, the same quantity to an adult, they're getting a much smaller dose than the same amount given to a child.
That's right.
And is it fair to say that the greater the dose, the greater the harm in terms of a poisonous substance like mercury?
Yes, that's true.
What did you do next?
So then I looked at studies that have looked at not just animals getting a single high dose, but getting lower doses over a period of time. And one of the studies that was published was done in Germany in 1988. And they actually, in this, they gave male and female rats different doses of hydrazine in drinking water. Okay? They gave it to them in the drinking water. And they gave it to them over the course of greater than a year. And then when the animals died, they did autopsies on the animals. And they had started this study because they thought they wanted to look at whether hydrazine caused cancer. It turned out it didn't cause cancer, but one of the things that they found was that it caused an increase in the prevalence of what's called bile duct hyperplasia, or a thickening or abnormality of the bile ducts. And those are an important component of the liver. So this was an example of how chronic exposure to hydrazine at lower dose that didn't kill the animals right away caused them to develop abnormalities in the liver. And this appeared at a dose of 0.13 milligrams per kilogram per day in the males rats and 0.77 milligrams per day in the female rats. Why was it higher in the females than the males? It's not clear. That sometimes happens. There's gender difference. There were several other studies. I'm not going to go through every single one. This was one that was done and published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute, where they gave hydrazine to hamsters, and they found at the lowest dose that they tested, this is not necessarily the lowest dose that caused this, but at 3.1 milligrams per kilogram per day, they had liver abnormalities by 19 weeks, and by 38 weeks, almost 2/3 of the animals had cirrhosis of the liver, which is a type, fibrosis is very bad liver damage. Another study that was done in Japan more recently, and they gave hydrazine to the animals. And in this case, this was in rats and mice, and they found that a dose of 1.8 milligrams per kilogram, there was an increase in liver enzymes. You've heard earlier about how liver enzymes can go up in people. In this case, well, they found this in the animals. In fact, they had very high enzyme levels at animals who were given 2.65 milligrams per kilogram. And there was another study that was published and discussed, I should say, it was reviewed in a scientific review of hydrazine, which is dozens and dozens of pages long, that was put together by the World Health Organization. And they found that there was damage to the brain and also damage to the liver at a dose as low as 0.03 milligrams per kilogram per day. And in this case, they didn't use just rats, they also used guinea pigs. Sometimes guinea pigs are more sensitive. There's variability, and it's not unusual in studies to see some animals are more sensitive than others, but there's variability. But these studies consistently showed that there was liver damage from long-term exposure to lower doses of the animals.
What about humans? Did you locate any reports of hydrazine exposure causing liver damage to humans?
There were no experimental studies in people who specifically designed to detect liver damage. But there were three types of evidence that I want to show you about that. Some of them were workplace studies where people who worked with hydrazine and developed liver disease. One of them, there were some studies, there was actually a period of time where people were trying to use hydrazine to treat cancer. It didn't work, but it caused bad side effects in the liver. And then there's also, I want to tell you about the fact that there's a drug that is used to treat tuberculosis called isoniazid. And a side effect of isoniazid that's very well recognized is liver disease, in some cases liver failure. And it turns out that isoniazid is metabolized to hydrazine. Okay? So let's talk about these briefly. This is one of the studies that we saw, and this was published in Finland, and actually it was a gentleman who worked with hydrazine 1 day a week. He handled it. They didn't specify exactly, but he probably had some inhalation exposure and thermal exposure, and he was a machinist. And after 6 months, he started to get ill. And he went to see a doctor, and when he went to the doctor, he had jaundice. You know what jaundice is? Yellow jaundice, your eyes are yellow, sometimes your skin is yellow. It's what happens when you have when you have liver failure. And that's what he had. He had a very high bilirubin. That's what causes you to become jaundiced. And he wound up actually dying. And they attributed his death to being exposed to hydrazine. And when they did an autopsy, they found evidence of liver damage. Now, I looked at how much we estimated he was exposed to, and I had to make some estimations. And I think his exposure could have been as low as 0.14 milligrams per kilogram a day. You see, I'm always highlighting the yellow doses because we're going to come back. Now, there were some other studies. Remember I told you about the studies that were done on people who were being exposed through cancer treatment. There was an unorthodox doctor, a doctor named Dr. Gold, back in the 70s. And he had this theory. He was not a mainstream physician, but he had this theory that got around that hydrazine could somehow be helpful in treating cancer or helping people who were developing what we call cachexia, or loss of weight and gaining and wasting away, if they gave them hydrazine. So, because there was a lot of clamor in patients, especially patients who nothing else was working to do it, there were some studies that looked at it. They didn't do formal controlled studies, but they gave some people hydrazine, okay? And they published this. And this is one report in 1975. They gave some people with disseminated cancer, in other words, bad advanced cancer. They gave 29 of them hydrazine, and it didn't help them get better. But some of those patients got evidence of elevated bilirubin, liver damage, and some of them had elevated liver enzymes. Now, the National Academy of Sciences actually referred to this study when they were asked to look at the Gulf War veterans. Remember the Gulf War veterans? There's a lot of sense of them getting ill. This was back in the early in the Bush administration when they invaded Iraq, and there was concerns. And the veterans were maybe exposed to hydrazine because it was used in rockets, propelled rockets and missiles. So they looked at it and they said, in their opinion, looking at the data, that these individuals, some of whom had evidence of liver damage, were exposed to 0.2 to 0.7 milligrams per kilogram per day. What about the drug isoniazid? Well, just let me say real briefly, this is another study that I think is worth just mentioning real quickly. This was a gentleman who self-treated him. He went to the internet and ordered hydrazine over the internet. And he took it to treat he had cancer of the maxillary sinus. The maxillary sinus is, sinuses in the head. He's reading about Dr. Gold. This was, even though most people said it didn't work, there's people who believe if they have cancer, they'll try anything. And unfortunately, this man, he took it for 4 months, and then he went to medical attention, and he was jaundiced. He was admitted to the hospital. He had severe liver damage. His bilirubin was 43.2. The normal was less than 1.2. And despite aggressive treatment, he went out to die. Okay, of both hepatic and GI bleeding. And hepatic encephalopathy. Yes, he died of hepatic encephalopathy. which is a form of brain swelling and brain damage that you get when you're living. Remember that was talked about in some patients. In this case, had Parkinson. So this is a guy who's taking hydrazine, and he died, and he had hepatic encephalopathy. And the dose, which we calculated, was 0.38 milligrams per kilogram. Okay, now isoniazid. Okay. So isoniazid, as I mentioned, is a drug that's used to treat tuberculosis. Or if you've been exposed to tuberculosis, you have to take it for sometimes 6 months to 9 months. But it's well known that about 20% of the people who take isoniazid develop evidence of liver injury. And in some studies, as many as 1%, it becomes so severe that it can sometimes fatal. That's a side effect of isoniazid. And they looked in studies in animals, this is some of the studies we looked at, and they thought that it was the hydrazine that was responsible. And I can show you why they thought hydrazine was responsible. I'll talk loud, so hopefully it's okay. This is INH. This is the drug INH. And what I want you to notice, remember we said that hydrazine was 2 nitrogens and 2 hydrogens? This little piece here, when it's metabolized, becomes hydrazine. Okay? And so they found out in their animal studies, it takes this enzyme to produce it. If this enzyme is inhibited, if you give them another drug, guess what? You don't get the animals didn't get the damage from the isoniazid, they get the liver. Also, you see this arrow here and this arrow here? This is an enzyme that converts either the INH or the hydrazine to other compounds, which are less toxic. This is an enzyme that's called NAT2 or N-acetyltransferase 2. This is the important point. People have different levels of that naturally. Okay? Some people have lower levels, and some people have higher levels. The people that have low levels, it doesn't act as much. This process is slow. This detoxification process is slow. And they're called slow acetylators. And guess what? If you are a slow acetylator, you're more susceptible if you get hydrazine, if you get isoniazid, to developing it. And probably, if you're a slow acetylator and you get exposed to hydrazine, you are going to be more likely to get liver damage. So that's why not everyone who took real water got liver damage. But there's a reason for why some people may be more susceptible. Okay? It's how much genetically this enzyme will form. And we know there's different levels. Okay? And in some cases, as many as in some groups of people, ethnic groups, it can be as much as 50% of the people are slow accepting.
Dr. Kosnett, can we look at the dose that you found by isoniazid and then go to the chart?
Yes. So I actually said, okay, well, if you're taking isoniazid at the standard dose, how much hydrazine is produced? And my estimate, if you assume that 1 molecule of isoniazid gets converted to 1 molecule of hydrazine, and the standard dose of isoniazid, which is also abbreviated INH, is 5 milligrams per kilogram, then the dose of hydrazine that's causing this toxicity in some of the people who take INH, not everyone, is about 1 milligram per kilogram. So I presented to you a bunch of different studies with a bunch of different doses. So now you're wondering, well, how much hydrazine did the people get who drank real water? Okay? And I looked into that and did some calculations. And basically, if I can approach.
Well, Dr. Kosnett, you looked at this, and based on the information that we know about the hydrazine that was tested in the concentrate, and how that's the process that's used to follow to make the water, move down a little bit in the finished product. And you came up with an approximate range given that information. Yes. And then compare that to the studies and the dosage. Right.
So I looked at the median dose, and I also did some calculations here. the 95th percentile. And this is what we got. The 95th percentile hydrazine dose in real water would have been 0.97, and this is for like people who are consuming. Now, some people could take a lot more, and some people have, remember, individual variability. But looking at the average dose, the median dose is 0.37, and the 95th percentile dose, you see the numbers 0.97 and 0.37? They fit right in the range of the studies we just described, from animals and from humans, of the doses that were experimentally shown to cause liver damage. So I concluded, and it is my belief, to a reasonable degree of medical probability, that the hydrazine in the real water was responsible for some people getting liver damage by drinking the real water. Dr. Kosnett, just to sum up, the greater the dose, the greater the harm. Yes. Right? Hydrazine was in the real water based on the information you looked at. Right. Hydrazine is rocket fuel. It's used in rocket fuel. Hydrazine, the rocket fuel, causes liver damage, and some people get a big effect. That's correct. Thank you, Dr. Kosnett. That's all I have for you.
Review, did you see the setup as to how the water was made with big
Yes.
I want to follow up on something you said. You said that hydrazine dissolves very easily in water. Is that
Yes.
accurate? What do you mean by that?
It means that, well, I don't have the exact amount, but it's not like putting vegetable oil in water that they separate out. If you put hydrazine in water, it goes into solution.
Okay. Can we use like something that everyday people understand, like perhaps, is it like when you're making spaghetti and they take a little bit of salt in the water and you put a little salt and it's just gone after you stir it around with the noodles?
It's probably not as soluble as salt in water, but it dissolves in it. It dissolves.
Okay, I appreciate that. So the hydrazine that ended up in the real water is going to be pretty well dissolved.
Yeah. It's called miscible. It's suspended, very fine suspension.
So if I'm understanding correctly, basically the hydrazine that's going to be in the real water, you can't see it.
That's right.
You smell it.
Depends on how much was there. It's possible, sometimes it has an ammonia type smell if it's present in high enough concentration.
Is it going to be oily? Is the water going to be oily or it's all dissolved?
Again, it depends on how much.
Is it going to be red? Is it going to be a fishy smell?
Not always. I mean, like I said, it could be if it was high enough amount, but in general, not always.
Is it going to look like dirt in water?
I don't think so.
Dr. Kosnett, all of the opinions that you testified to today, were they all stated to a reasonable degree of medical probability?
They were.
Thank you.
Okay, is this witness excused for all purposes?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thanks very much. I think at this juncture, being perfectly timed, a few minutes after the 3 o'clock hour, we should take our afternoon break and come back at 3:20. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, first we're going to do recess admonition. During this recess, you are admonished not to talk or converse among yourselves with anyone else on any subject of the trial or your process. You must not read, watch, or listen to any report of or commentary on the trial or your process or any person or entity connected with the trial or your process by any medium of information, including without limitation, social media, text, tweets, newspapers, television, internet, radio. Anything I've not stated specifically is also included. Do not visit the scene or the events mentioned during the trial or undertake any research, experimentation. I really need that little quieter so we can make sure this gets on the record, please. I appreciate you trying to pull up, but I just need a little quieter. Let me read that sentence if you don't mind. Thank you so very much. Okay, do not visit the scene or the events mentioned during the trial or undertake any research, experimentation, or investigation. Do not do any posting or communications on any social networking sites or anywhere else. Do not do any independent research, including but not limited to internet searches. Do not form or express any opinion on any subject in the case until it's fully and finally submitted at the time of jury deliberations. With that, have a very nice break. And you know, since I took a few extra minutes, we're going to say 3:25. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
All rise.
second, so we're here. Okay, thanks, Judge. Council, can I at least one council from each of the parties? You can have more if you want to. Approach for a real brief, quick second, we're gonna turn some white noise. Who's on the record? Outside the presence. Okay, councils, a couple of administrative issues for end of the day is one we're just gonna discuss and just kind of put on your particular list is whether you want the current seating of the jurors in light of the number of videos that you're gonna have in light where the screens are, okay? So you just pop that on your list. I understand you all just want to address that at end of day. Is that correct, councils for Plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor.
Council for Real Water?
Real water, that is correct.
ETT?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And that's Mr. Boho on behalf of the number. We got a lot of attorneys here. I just gotta remember, please always state your names. We do appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Is there any other thing you need outside the presence of the jury, or should the marshal just bring in the jury?
Your Honor, just an explanation. I told you about the no-no list. Mr. Desotel is gonna have it on the stand, so if you see him with a piece of paper, that's what it is.
Okay. Of course, and I understand that's agreeable with ET&T and Real Water, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, copy for real water, that is agreeable by us.
Dan Boho for ETTS.
Okay, perfectly fine. So the marshal's just getting our jurors together. Okay, you're set. I think they're here. This is nice.
All Rashford, front to the jury.
Sure.
Be seated.
Thanks so much. Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, at this juncture, counsel for plaintiff, would you like to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor, we would call Mr. Jeffrey Desotel.
Thanks, Judge. And he's out in the hallway, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
The marshal will go and get him. Thank you so very much.
You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pains and penalty of perjury?
Yes.
May I have a seat and please state and spell your name for the record.
Okay.
My name is Jeffrey L. Desotel, Jeffreyl, period, Desotell.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Desotel, could you tell the jury where you're from?
I currently reside in Henderson, Nevada.
And where were you from originally?
Originally, I hail from Detroit.
And after you left high school, what'd you do?
I went to 1 year of college and then I entered the United States Army.
What were your jobs in the Army?
My primary job was airborne infantry, leadership, instructor, drill sergeant, and a recruiter.
And how long were you in the military?
21 years, 1 month, 19 days.
Does the military have procedures?
Yes, they do.
When did you come to Las Vegas?
It was August 25th, 2011.
And why did you come to Las Vegas?
Wife's family.
Did you work at Real Water at one time?
Yes, I did briefly.
And how did it come to your attention that there was a job opening at Real Water?
I had seen it online.
Approximately when did you see that job interview request? Approximately.
It's been a while. 2016?
Were you interviewed?
Yes.
Who interviewed you?
The son of the owner. I can't remember his first name.
Does Blaine sound?
Lane, yes.
And we need a friendly reminder that we give witnesses. Sometimes people get a little conversational, try to talk at the same time. We just need you to pause for a quick second before you answer, just so we don't have two people talking at the same time, okay? Get everyone a nice clear record.
Yes, Judge.
Okay, appreciate it. And the other thing is, those chairs are really nice and comfortable. Sometimes people have a tendency to lean back and like to relax. And so if you do, and we can't hear you, my recorder might ask you to move forward and get closer to the microphone, okay?
Yes, Judge.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Go ahead, Counsel.
Okay, approximately when did you start working at Real Water?
I want to say 2016.
What was your job position?
My job position was basically a lead, or you could say a supervisor.
Did they reference you at any point as the director of quality control?
Yes, they did.
Did they tell you you were the director of quality control?
That was their title that they put my name to.
Were you the director of quality control?
No, I was not.
Did you approve the way that the real water operation was run?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Violation is good manufacturing practices, GMPs. I believe in cleanliness. You got to maintain the line. You have to obtain a certain level of standard to prevent, stuff happening to the product and thus getting to the customer.
And you've worked for other companies after leaving the Army in Real Water?
Yes, I did.
And how does Real Water rate among the companies you've worked for?
Last one, bottom.
And why is that?
The lack of policy, procedure, written or spoken, of GMPs, FDA, any outside government agencies' requirement to maintain a manufacturing environment.
And when you were at Real Water, did they have something that was called concentrate?
Yes.
And in general, what was the concentrate?
I don't know what was in it, but it was in little bottles and it was kept over in the other side room. I never dealt with the concentrate.
Okay, and when you say little bottles, would they be bottles such as the one I have in my hand?
No, they were, I'm sorry, Judge. They were smaller concentrate bottles that they sold.
Okay. When you made the Real Water, was there something they added into the water during the mixing process?
Yes, there was.
And was that called what? Concentrate?
When I was there, I never called it concentrate. It was
Was there a 5-gallon container that you added something to the Real Water?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and where was that made at?
On the floor.
Was there a room where Mr. Blaine Jones made something?
Yes, it was yes, sorry.
What was that room?
I don't know. I wasn't allowed in the room.
Okay. That was gonna be my next question. Did you ever go inside that room?
No, sir.
While you were working at Real Water, did you know that there were titanium tubes being used as part of the manufacturing process?
No, sir.
And while you were working at Real Water, did you know that they were somehow putting electricity as part of the manufacturing process?
No, sir.
And you were supposedly the director of quality control.
Correct.
And did they allow you to look at customer complaints, if any?
No, sir.
And while you were working at Real Water, did they give you any customer complaints? While you were working at Real Water?
While working at Real Water, any one customer complaint came to me with a foreign object in a bottle.
Okay. After working at Real Water, did you become aware of customer complaints?
Objection. Beyond scope. Is late witness.
Counsel, can you all approach, please? Counsel, I understand you withdrawing that, so Courtney, that will, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Desotel, you said you were the production director? Or a production manager? What was your job position as you understood?
For Real Water,
Right.
and supervisor.
Okay. And as part of your responsibilities, did you have an understanding as to what, if anything, you were supposed to do if you became aware that there was a potential problem with the product?
There was nothing written or verbally.
Okay. But did you have an understanding as to what you should have done?
In other words, before I worked there,
While you were working.
What's
there.
right and wrong?
Yeah, right.
Oh, I understand what's right and wrong.
Okay, and what is it you should have done if you became aware that there was a serious problem?
Stop production,
And why would you have stopped production if you knew there was a serious problem?
prevent further manufacturing of the water, to prevent any damage to anybody or the environment.
And did you ever stop production?
No, I did not.
Did you ultimately leave Real Water?
Yes.
Why?
There are a list of things why, mainly for the disarray of how the plant, or how the, not plant, but the manufacturing facility was ran, the limitations that were put on me to meet GMP protocols, and limitations on me to run the actual line.
And when you say limitations to meet GMPs, okay, that's general manufacturing, good manufacturing practices?
Correct, sir.
So someone put some limit on you to meet good manufacturing practices?
Yes, they did.
And what type of limits?
The limits to where so far as not to stop production, to clean, to, meet basic cleanliness for a manufacturing facility. Because we are producing something that a human consumes.
And when you say limits, how were the limits given to you or imposed upon you?
I was called up to an office, sat down, and verbally told by Blaine and, I don't remember her name, and basically said, you will not shut down production for anything.
And was the name you're trying to think of Amy Jones?
Correct, Amy.
That's Blaine's stepmother?
Yes.
And why do you think that that directive, those limits, affected good manufacturing practices?
For the pressures to produce as much water as we can to sell it.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Kosnett, and go next to.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thanks. Real Water, would you like to do the cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, feel free to do so.
Good afternoon, Mr. Desotel.
Afternoon.
My name is Matt Kaufman, I'm one of the attorneys for Real Water. Before I start, I just want to say thank you for your service. 21 years is a long time in the military, from my understanding. You retired from the military, I was looking at your deposition, and it looks like you retired from the military in roughly 2006, early 2007?
That is correct.
Okay. And you said you started at Real Water in 2016. Do you recall when in 2016 you believe you started?
I cannot remember the month.
Let me ask it this way. Was it Christmas time? Do you remember what the weather was like, anything like that?
No, it was 5+ years ago.
Fair enough. I understand. It's been a long time. Do you remember how long you were actually at Real Water?
I estimated, because I try to remember, of course, about 8 months.
8 months. So if you started in 2016, you believe you left in sometime in 2017?
Possible. I don't remember the month.
Okay. You have no personal knowledge of what occurred at Real Water before you arrived there, correct?
None.
And you have no personal knowledge of what happened at Real Water after you left there, correct?
None.
Okay. In between 2006 and when you started at Real Water, do you know how many jobs you had?
I'd have to count them.
So I looked at your, and I could run through them from your deposition if you like, but if you have a number, that's fine too.
Counting out of state, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, from the time you left the military to the time you worked at Real Water.
Seven?
Okay. Now, did you deal with customers when you worked at Real Water?
No.
Okay. And you said during Mr. Kemp's questioning, you mentioned you were given one customer complaint involving a foreign object in a bottle, correct?
Yes.
What did you do after you got that complaint?
Well, it was shown to me by Blaine, that they, we had a foreign object in there, and basically why, and to figure out how did it get in there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Were you done?
Yes.
Okay. Did you figure out what happened?
No.
But did you make any improvements on the line after that?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have for you, sir.
ETT, cross-examination?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Sorry.
Nothing further from us, Your Honor.
Okay. Being no further questions, I move moving on to do not see any jury questions. So at this juncture, is this witness excused subject to recall for all purposes?
For all purposes, Your Honor.
Real water agrees, Your Honor.
ETT agrees.
Appreciate it. Thank you so very much for your time. Feel free to step down, just watch your step on the way down and have a nice weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge. You got a nice courtroom.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. Okay. This. Oh, yeah. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Okay, at this juncture, counsels for plaintiff, would you like to call your next witness? I know we're running a little bit ahead. What would you like to do?
Judge, I think I'd like it early out.
Okay, for water?
I definitely don't have an objection to that.
ETT?
Join.
Okay, jurors, I think you might want to be gone a little bit earlier on a Friday. Okay, so we'll take that taken care of for you. So what we're gonna do is gonna give recess admonishment. If you remember, I gave you the schedule. We're still on track for, my Monday was 9 a.m. to commence, okay? And so get that taken care of. So during this weekend, and I do appreciate that sometimes that first weekend, people really want to start thinking, okay, now that you've heard a little bit of testimony. Do not, you must not, you cannot, and of course, I'm going to read the full recess and admonishment. Thank you so very much. During this weekend recess, while you enjoy it and relax and do not think about this case at all, please ensure you are admonished not to talk or converse among yourselves with anyone else on any subject connected with the trial. You must not read, watch, or listen to any report of or commentary on the trial or any person or entity connected with the trial by any medium of information, including without limitation, social media, text, tweets, newspapers, television, internet, radio. Everything I'm not stated specifically is still also included, it's all inclusive. Do not visit the scene or any of the events mentioned during the trial. Do not undertake any research, experimentation, or investigation. Do not do any posting or communications on any social networking sites or do any independent research, including but not limited to internet searches. And of course, please, you must not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with this trial until it's fully and finally submitted at the time of jury deliberations. With that, we hope you have a very nice and relaxing weekend. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. And yes, please leave those notebooks on the chairs as you're already doing. We do appreciate it. And I think you all can see better than I can, probably. I can see the notebooks on this back row. See them on the front row? We're still all there, all the notebooks? Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, no worries. Sometimes people inadvertently, so I always want to make sure before people get too far down. Okay, feel free to sit down, we stand on the record for a few moments and address a couple of different issues. When the marshal returns, I'm going to ask him to pick up those notebooks in case any of you all have a question about kind of viewing. Marshal, would you mind picking up the notebooks so we can just start for the weekend?
No problem, Judge.
Appreciate it, okay. And so, what the court is doing that you mentioned is, because you have a number of videos, okay, as you see, you're set, by agreement of the parties, you're set in a 6-6 situation, where you have 1 through 6 in the back row, and 7 through 12 in the second row. Now, if you all wish the jurors to remain in that situation, that's perfectly fine, but what the court was really questioning is, one of the jurors, I don't want to point out, but let's just say it's one of the people in one of those last two ones, so closest to plaintiff, had just indicated it was a little bit difficult. Okay, still was able to hear everything, still was able to see everything with the witness, but, you know, to keep the neck kind of moved in a particular situation throughout. So, do you all wish to have any change of the seating arrangement? And there's a wide variety of options that you can propose. Sometimes people want a 4-4-4, so that you do utilize that front row and use 4 seats there. Sometimes it's a 5-4-3, okay? So you have 5 in the back row, 4 in the second row, and 3 in the first row. The court doesn't have a preference, the court's not requiring anything, that's not requiring you to even change or move anything. I just give you the heads up of what was brought to the court's attention, and if you wish anything to be done, please let the court know. If you don't, then we'll just leave it as is.
Can we ask the jury what they would like in terms of an arrangement? If they-
It presents a challenge when you do that, because
Marshall,
if you, pardon?
Have the marshal ask, not me.
Yeah, like I said, it's usually the issues with those last two chairs, right? Seats 5 and 6 and 11 and 12. Okay?
Right.
Last two. Like I said, another option is we can move the TV and see if that covers the person's need, because the TV above, right now, where the plaintiffs are, can be turned and twisted so it's more facing the panel, okay? So we could do that, and we can see if that solves the situation.
That's a good idea.
Do we have a ladder?
Well, that's, we have to get that taken care of through,
I can stand on the railing.
no, you're not.
After
After you sign the full waiver, then potentially, but, no, we can try and see through the county real property to see if they can do that for us, okay? Whether they can do it by 9 AM on Monday when today is 4 o'clock on Friday.
They're not here today, apparently.
We've already checked, yeah, they're not here today apparently. So whether that can be done by 9, is your first witness on Monday going to be someone on video?
No, they're all live witnesses Monday, right?
Okay, so that's a potential solution if you want that by Tuesday. If you're asking, so let's, counsel for plaintiffs, you had one suggestion to the marshal to ask, but they're not gonna necessarily know without trying out different seats, you know what I mean?
Has someone reported it being a problem?
My understanding is, word wasn't a problem, that, you know what I mean? Just in having to sit that way for the entire time was a little bit difficult. It was not a complaint, it was not a problem. They had no issue of not being able to hear and see everything. Realistically, I don't think, since this court is aware from what you have told me, there will be a series of individuals who will be on via video. So it's whether or not you want to address that or not. It's really up to you on counsel.
I'd rather have the TV turned if that can be done.
Can we try that as an option? Just try that as a first option? Does
Yeah,
that
the
mean
real
it's a
water
real
agrees as a first option. Let's try and manipulate the TV.
Dan Boho, ET agrees.
Okay, so then what we can do is we can, when you put up an exhibit on Monday, presumably you're gonna put up an exhibit to see if that, having that TV, everyone can see well, or if there's something else requested, I'll just, then you would ask them just to let the marshal know at the break if there's any concerns. So far, like I said, there was no concerns during any of the witnesses and the exhibits, it just only became that long video, and you can appreciate doing the thing. Okay, my understanding from the bench, and I just want to get confirmation, is with regards to ET&T's motion limited number 14, that nobody was requesting the court do anything, and the court's just moving forward, is that correct?
That's right, Your Honor.
Joel Odou for Real Water, that is correct.
Dan Boho on behalf of ET&T, that is correct.
Okay, and I think you all have gotten your exhibit issues taken care of, and I think the one issue that we had is 620, there was a reference to 623 being admitted, and that was a medical record, but any,
You didn't say it was admitted, it was showed, oh yeah,
Sure.
it was just showed, but it was referenced, but not.
you all at one point had made a comment that all the medical records were admitted, that was said earlier, that we didn't see 623 is actually being in your stipulated list.
Your Honor, Joel Odou for Real Water, I believe there was more exhibits admitted that are showing on the list, and we will get together with Mr. Pepperman over the weekend and make sure, because I think we have a broader agreement than that shows.
Okay, so at this juncture, is anybody requesting the court do anything about 623 being shown?
No, Your Honor.
Counsels for planning, you requesting anything?
No, Your Honor.
ETT, you requesting anything?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm putting my, don't need to address anything file. Okay, is there any administrative matters that anybody needs addressed? Counsels for planning?
I just want to make the defendants aware of the witnesses for Monday.
Oh, sure, go ahead. And is this also for depot purposes as well?
There's no depositions Monday yet.
Any depositions you might need for purposes of these witnesses?
So we would have Mr. Randolph, Anthony Randolph, followed by Dr. Hudson. We have Mr. Marlowe lined up at 3, and then we're putting Mrs. Brody on as well, Your Honor. So those would be the 4.
Do you mind if I ask, I'm trying to do something this weekend. Do you have anything tentative Tuesday that you're willing to share?
excuse me, do I have witnesses to?
Yeah, yeah, do you, if you
We think
mind.
we're gonna bring, we think we're gonna bring Dr., is it Dr. Newhouse?
Mr. Newhouse.
Dr. Newhouse, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 videos that we're going to send out, new cuts, and try to get some agreement on. And so the videos we're gonna try to get some agreement on would be Lane Jones, Castillo, Converse, and Zoran. And, but other than that, I think there's still some live witnesses that we might plug into Tuesday, but we really haven't gotten that far with folks on Monday.
Understood, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Okay, does that take care of all administrative matters on behalf of plaintiff?
In fact, one further comment, there's no expert intended for Tuesday other than you us.
Thank you.
Okay, does that take care of all the plaintiffs? Yes, any other administrative issues on behalf of plaintiffs? Okay, thanks, Mike. And FYI, you had mentioned it's perfectly fine. I know we've been giving the accommodation of the headphones on the witness. Do you need those from Ms. Brody on the witness stand? You just need to let us know that day, okay? If you need something else, because I have to check to see if there's any interference issue. It shouldn't be. I think we should be perfectly fine. But you anticipating you need the headphones on the witness stand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Laura, any issue with headphones on the witness stand?
It depends on the microphone, just headphones.
Ms. Brody, when she testifies, has the hearing assisted headphones.
As long as they don't, she doesn't, if they get turned up too loud sometimes.
Right, that's what,
They can interfere with the mic if they're too close to what you're saying.
yeah, you get feedback sound, which nobody really wants to hear, particularly for, it's just, the volume has been, an easy way to do this is to test it outside the presence of the jury before you go to the witness stand. Just, if you want to test a question, you're just saying something that makes sure your volume is okay. Otherwise, you get a lot of feedback sound, okay?
Okay.
There should be no issue. It's a simple, easy fix, okay? So, real water, what administration issues can we address for you?
No issues, Your Honor, just standing up because we've been sitting a long time.
Appreciate that. Okay, ETT, any administrative issues you need addressed?
Dan Boho, no, Your Honor.
Have a nice weekend, folks. We're back on record.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you,